What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Corbin Claypool Show. Excited to have these two on, Beau and Dylan. I've known Beau for a really long time. He's a really good friend of mine, and I've known Dylan for a good while now. So, Dylan, how long has it been since you just got back from Cal Poly or that area?
Yeah, I graduated in June.
Okay, so you've been back now for about a year now, almost, or getting close to a year.
Yeah,
so
almost.
Dang, man. So Beau is a real estate broker in the Central Valley. So Beau, talk about yourself a little bit, man. Tell the audience who you are, what you do, and let's get into it.
Thank you. So I like long walks on the beach. No, I've been a real estate broker for about 10 years now. 12 years in the real estate industry. I took over when my father had passed away. We do property management at Miracle Realty, based out of Madera. We used to have 4 locations, Sanger, Fresno, and Clovis, including Madera. But now we're just the one office, headquarters in Madera, if you will. And that's what I do.
Nice, man. Okay, so one thing I really like about Beau, and we've talked about this a lot, is you've taught me a lot about personal growth, about, I mentioned to you, like, you're almost like monk mode, bro, because like nothing really seems to affect you. At least when I'm talking to you, nothing seems to affect you, and you can stay super calm and level-headed. I feel like I'm getting there now, but it took me some time. So let's go into that a little bit, man. Like, what do you do for self-growth? What do you do for pouring into yourself? I know that's an important part of your life.
Well, that's a very impactful question, but for myself, I think that it's just important to constantly make good deposits, daily deposits, surrounding yourself with good people like yourself. Having good family around, good support system, but most importantly to that as well is to work out, to read books, eat healthy, and surround yourself with a good sphere of people. And then again, if you're constantly feeling like you're getting complacent, then you need to up level a little bit. And that's what I've always kind of strived to do, is constantly push that bar to kind of set that tone to either self grow or surround yourself with people that are growing.
100%. And Dylan, what about you, man? Because I feel like you and Beau are very similar in a lot of ways with the growth mindset and all that kind of stuff. And I see you posting your stuff. What are you doing for growth, and what are you doing for development? So.
Yeah. Oh, it's kind of hard not to be about growth, and you got this guy sit down. But no, I mean, I'm just a big believer in that too. I mean, he's done a really good job with me, like shaping my mind with like goals and stuff, and I guess reading. But yeah, I mean, I'm always like, if I'm in the car, it's like Car University, it's a podcast, it's an Audible. I've gotten a lot more selective with who I hang out with as I've gotten older. So that's been really important for me. And he used to tell me that growing up, is like, you are who you surround yourself with. But honestly, it just kind of sounded like, like some random cliche quote, like that you like the random quotes that you see, like live, laugh, love in the houses, Right, but it didn't really start making sense until I was like in college and kind of being a little bit of a wild child. And then kind of seeing myself going down a hole that I didn't really like to be a part of. And then I'd say when I was like 19 or 20, I started becoming really selective of who I spent my time with. So I'd say the biggest things that I focus on is just like reading, podcasts, and then making sure that I'm hanging out with solid people.
Love it, man. And one thing that people may not know about you is you're a D1 wrestler. And so I feel like wrestling is a sport that is just different.
Yeah.
Like the people are built different in wrestling. It just takes an insane amount of work to be good, and especially to make it at a D1 level. You're like a whole nother animal, bro. And you're so humble about it. You stay super chill about it. But the reality is, I feel like that work is pouring in now, and it's going to make you super, super successful with what you do in real estate and everything else that you do. So how has like wrestling helped? And kind of go into that a little bit, bro, like your journey in wrestling and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's funny, like you kind of do certain things you don't really think about like much of them. I didn't even really think I didn't think I was really good at wrestling until like I was a 4th year in college, and one of the younger guys was like, dude, I used to be scared of you in high school. And I was like, what? Like, because I just did the work, And so it's funny because he would always tell me, I always had a really hard time comparing myself to everyone because like I just wanted to be great. So like I never could like be okay with like where I was ever. I just like, he was telling a story earlier, but when I was like in 7th grade, he would take me to high school practices, and I'd get my ass kicked by some, sophomores, juniors in high school, and I was a 7th grader, and I'd come home fired up, and I was pissed. And I'm like, dude, like I got beat by these kids. I'm like, he's like, dude, they're 6 years older than you. I was like, I don't care. Like, I need to be beating them. And I've just always kind of been like that. So looking back on it now, it's kind of hard to, even now, like, it's like, great. I'm really, excited that I've been able to wrestle and do what I love. But it's, I don't know. It's just kind of the thing that you do. But I've been very fortunate to be exposed to like high level training and things like that. And to just survive in a college wrestling room. I didn't take anyone down for like the first 7 months of training. Yeah. And so I would call him like once a month and just be like, I don't think I have it. Like, I don't think I have it in me. I can't do this. And there were a couple guys.
Let me say this. What would you say to that when he would call you, dude? Because I think we need to kind of get into that.
all kinds of stuff's going on in my brain when you guys are talking, because you gave me a lot of reference to being a monk, but far from. So to be honest, you got to know when to and when not to push. A lot of the times when he was a young wrestler, like I said, I'd tell him like, dude, you got your ass kicked by a senior your 7th grade. He'd be like, no, it's no exception. But again, kind of going back to what you were asking about being on a high level or doing the things to be on a high level, we tend to do the things that not everybody wants to do. That's being consistent and doing those things. But most importantly, as a father, talking your kid off the ledge isn't always the easy thing, because you want to be like, hey, don't be a little, whatever you want to use.
That is what he would say.
Don't be bleep,
don't be a little bitch.
Yeah. So basically,
I'm not calling you.
Fuck you. Yeah, I'd be like, Dad, I'm done with wrestling. I'd be like, well, you signed up for this shit. If you're gonna start it, finish it. And I try to be soft when I could be, but my soft is a little treachery right there.
But I feel like tough love is important too.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
You're just like, it's okay. You'll get him next time.
Well, I think that for me, I was mom and dad, right? Because when Dylan moved with me, I was a full-time parent. There's no instructions. It's not like you get FedEx and, hey, here's to be a dad,
Right.
So I had to be both. And Dylan's also he's a very loving person. That's just how his genetic makeup is, and that's okay. Myself, hugs and shit, cuddling, it's not really my jam. It's
You're getting like, every time I like try to cuddle him on the couch, you just get hella stiff.
like a stone or something. Yeah, like one time.
I've never been loved.
Like hold on. So like one story, so we're watching TV. We're on opposite sides of the couch. He's in the 8th grade. Mind you, he's 140 something pound 8th grader. Right? So it's not like he's a little small.
You were tanked.
So he comes up and he kind of like, he wants to cuddle up to me. And I was like, I didn't know how to handle it, you know what I mean? And it's just, again, one of those things that it was one of those things that constantly pushed me to be outside of my comfort zone as well.
Yeah.
Because I knew he needed it. But the other side of it is I was at every tournament, every practice. I drove him to multiple practices. Whether I had the money or not, he never knew. If he got qualified or he got selected to go wrestle at Columbus State University, I figured it out. But he'd call me and I'd be watching him on I think one time it was on Flow Wrestling, but it might have been ESPN. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was a high level tournament for middle schoolers, national grade, And so he calls me. He's like, oh, and I was like, Dylan, what the fuck were you thinking? You could have beat that kid. You're holding back or whatever. And he'd be like, like just wrecked his dreams. But again, he'd go back out there and he'd wrestle like what he could wrestle like. And specifically one time that comes to my mind that he was wrestling, he had these big aspirations and these big dreams, which is great. I definitely, encourage that. But he had what's called a blood round. And he wanted a place at the state tournament in 7th grade.
So what's a blood round? Let's get into that real quick.
Go
just
ahead.
In a synopsis.
Yeah, well, they call it the blood round because it's like one of the crazy. I mean, it's like where dreams are made and like dreams are crushed. Like I just had one of the kids I train lost in the bloods, and then he's crushed and he's bawling, and then the other kid is like floored, right?
So it's basically
okay.
So what happens is to get to your blood round, you lose a match. So if you don't win that next match, you're out. But that next match can be the determination for you to place or not place.
Yeah, blood round's right before placing.
I want to point one thing out too. If nobody's ever done like a one-on-one combat sport like jiu-jitsu or wrestling, there's just something different about that one-on-one sport versus like a team sport. I remember I wrestled growing up, nothing to your extent at all. I wrestled when I was like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, nothing crazy. But it was like intense, you know what I mean? It's a whole different level than when I played like water polo with a whole team. So I just want to say that.
No, 100%. Dude, the one-on-one is completely different. Like you said, you don't have anybody else to depend on. The support is cool, but it's just you and your opponent. So when he was going out there, he kind of lost a tough match, 3-2. Excuse me. And so he was a little bummed, and I told him, like, listen, you can either be a little puss or you can get back up and you can go out there and beat this kid. This is a Clovis kid, which Clovis is obviously known for wrestling, even at that level or that grade. And so I slapped him around a little bit, and I said, hey, you go out there and wrestle, or you give up now. And so
because I had 5 matches I needed to win in order to place at that tournament.
That's what had happened.
Because I lost the first match.
So he had to wrestle back 5 matches in a row to win.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Yes. But his last match, or the match to get him to get over the hump, was a Clovis kid. And literally at the last moment, Dylan threw this kid in a headlock on his back and won at the last 10 seconds of the match.
Bro, you were probably cheering like crazy.
Oh, dude, we were both pumped, right?
That's so sick.
But he had totally forgotten, well, in that moment, probably that I chewed his ass earlier. But after the fact, again, it was one of those moments that, you know, he had achieved such great success. He overcame fear. He overcame doubt.
When did you start?
I started wrestling like 2010, and I just stopped in like June of 22.
Okay, what grade was that for you?
I think I was in 4th grade.
Dude, I'm feeling old, bro. I was graduating high school, or maybe not graduating, but I'm supposed to be graduating. No, okay, so you wrestled since 4th grade. That's kind of when everybody starts. Did you do camps and stuff growing up? Like, I guess I'm just trying to ask, like, how did you become so good to get into a freaking D1 school? Like, obviously it was a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
So
well, definitely I would say a big part of, I mean, I wasn't very good, honestly. I was like, I think I was one of those kids that was like just really strong. And so I got away with like a lot of things when I was younger.
Right.
And I also had he wrestled, my uncle wrestled. And so I kind of like, think I had it in my blood. Plus I was horrible at every other sport. So I kind of just fell in love with that because I was going to like these family reunions and stuff and hang out with my cousins, and I was hurting everybody because I was just wanting to play, you know, but I was just too strong for my own good, I guess. So I wasn't very good at playing, I guess. But he did a really good job of just like exposing me to as much as he could and taking me to practices and stuff. And no one ever really poured into me like that at that level. And so I think for me though, the biggest thing that kind of separated me is I was never really like a standout kid. I had to really work hard for what I achieved in wrestling. Like I did 2-a-days. I was just talking to someone about it the other day, but I did 2-a-days. Like, so I would work out in the morning with him. I'd go to practice and I would do another practice. I did that for like 7 years. And then I did it like in college. So it was like, I've done 2-a-days for like 10 years almost, you know? And so, what wrestling though, to answer your question from earlier, what wrestling really taught me is how to respond to challenges and to just complete, like you were saying earlier, like to complete what you set out to do. And I noticed for me with him and I are pretty similar. So we butt heads quite often. And whenever I wrestled my best is when he would chew me out because I wanted to do good in spite of him. I'm like, screw that guy, you know? And then there was one time in particular, I had lost a match, like the second match at Nationals. And it was to an okay kid. And he was like, I paid all this money. And he's like, you're going to wrestle like that? And I was like, fuck this guy. And then I won every match after that. And so like, to me and then same thing happened in college. So it just really taught me how to respond to challenges. And I've just realized with myself, with the sport, is that the more that I'm challenged, like the more that I'm like, all right, game on. Like like my back's to the corner. Like this is where it's fun, you know?
So hold on, let me extract some information from that. You brought father and son on here, so we got a battle here. Yeah. So anyways, to that particular tournament, there is some reverse psychology that you have to play with your kid because sometimes when they're at their worst, you have to be able to get it out of them. Unfortunately, the only way to extract that from Dylan was to piss him off because he's such a soft kid. If I would have been like, hey, you know, better next time, bud, he'd have been like, okay, dad, you know, and just like wrestled like shit again. But if I could get him into that mode, he would snap out of it.
I was locked in.
But also to extract from that, you have to realize that I was his coach because his coaches wouldn't even go. So we flew out to, where was it?
That was Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. I had to be his coach in his corner. So now I'm not only his dad in his corner, I'm his coach.
100%.
And then when you're watching your son sometimes, just like he most recently saw as a coach, and you see that they're not doing the things that you know that they can do, there's certain things about wrestling, like you said, there's nothing I can do. I can't throw a towel in. I can't throw him a Hail Mary. The only thing I can do is yell at him in the corner and just watch the time tick down.
Right.
But going back to that, where he started and where his base came from, you know, I have a military background, but I was also in wrestling. But a lot of people don't understand what it takes to be a wrestler.
Oh,
you got to lose weight. You got to miss meals. You've got to work out extra hard. Your conditioning's got to be on point. This kid in 7th and 8th grade would wake up with me, go to the gym, whether he liked it or not, 6 a.m. before school.
Wow.
Come home every day. I would cook us breakfast. I was always on a healthy regiment eating plan for like a nutrition plan. He would follow in suit to that. He would then go to 2 practices, therefore after for the day. And wrestling's not a 3 or 4 month sport. There's freestyle, there's preseason, there's during season, there's postseason. 11 months, Corbin. 11 months. We would finally get a time off. And it would be like, oh, there's another tournament coming. Hey, Dad, I really want to go to this tournament in Vegas. Hey, Dad, I really want. I mean, it's a sport that's just constantly on the grind. So he did that for 12 years.
That's crazy. So you had to have known too, like, okay, he's not wrestling at his full potential right now, and you knew exactly what to do to get it out of him. You know, and that's powerful.
But knowing again, there was times where he would wrestle at his best, and I would know, and he doesn't always say that, and that's okay. But when he would. And I could see that he put his best foot forward, and he just lost to a really good kid. I said he would be defeated. Then I'd be in his corner saying, "Son, you wrestled great. There was nothing that you could have done any better. Maybe you could have got the better hand if you would have done something or whatever. But the reality of it is you wrestled a great match, and I'm not disappointed."
Yeah, I got chills with that, dude. That's powerful. One thing I really love about this too, Dylan, you mentioned like you really kind of created your own success. And I think a lot of times, especially younger people, they look up to people like LeBron James, for instance, who's just a genetic freak of nature. Like he's an animal. And to be honest, they're never going to be LeBron James. They're just not. They don't have the genetic makeup for it. So they need to look at that guy in the NBA that worked his ass off to get into the NBA and did everything he possibly could to get in. That's the guy they need to model after. Not somebody like LeBron James. I'm not saying not to model after him, but I'm just saying like LeBron is, you know, gifted by basically, by God, you know? So I love that you bring that up, like that you had to put the work in to get there, because that's powerful, man. And that going into wholesaling, investing, or real estate, I mean, you're going to be miles ahead of the people your age and people older than you too. So that's awesome, dude. I love that story. That's good stuff.
Well, and I think circling back to what you were asking, what do I do different, or what do I do to be a monk, which I aspire to be, but I'm far from. It's my experiences. A lot of my experiences have been super humbling beginnings. So my reaction to certain things, I don't always get phased for the things that like most people be like, oh my gosh, how did you take that on? Or, you know, how did you deal with that? Well, those experiences made me good. Now, my fight or flight in some instances, I'm not always perfect. So some things might piss me off that you'd be like, why did this guy get pissed off at that, but not this? You know, this guy just shot him in the leg and he's fine. But over here, he took a penny from him and he's mad. You know, and so again, it's just it's all, I guess, perspective in some instances. But right. I also know that it's experiences.
So go into that, man. What experiences did you have growing up? I know you were in the military. We talked about that when we were in Vegas. Like, what experiences do you have that shaped you to who you are?
Well, you keep asking these great questions. So I'll try to unpack without taking over the show. So, you know, I grew up in Madera. I grew up in Madera, a small little place where everybody kind of knows your name. I would almost attribute that to like Cheers. You know, It's such a small town. So, you know, the people that I went to high school with is now who I do business with, and now that are my clients. But growing up, I kind of had a little bit of a rough background. I didn't always make the best decisions, hung out with some of the wrong people. And, you know, where you surround yourself is what you become. And that's where I kind of put my choices in at that time. So I moved to Michigan, where I had family, and then eventually made one of the biggest things of my life or the best things of my life is Dylan. But I was residing in Michigan. I couldn't work because I couldn't keep a job. So I was getting fired multiple times.
So go into that just for 2 seconds. Were you just a troublemaker? Were you doing drugs? Like, what was causing you from...
Okay.
You don't have to go into detail.
No, I don't mind. I don't mind. I've come a long way.
What I want to get out of it, man, is people that, you know, somebody that's watching this right now, they may be in that spot And you're a great example of somebody who's maybe come from that and been able to just, excel, create a business, have rental properties, become successful. And so that's why I want to dive into it.
No, 100%. I don't mind sharing. Just where do I articulate it so I don't overtake the show. So I think that it was choices that I made, and those choices were drugs, alcohol. I'm an excessive person. I think everybody here is probably a little bit excessive in their own way. But if I smoked marijuana, a lot of people are like, oh, I used to smoke marijuana. I used to smoke like a half ounce or an ounce a day, right? If I was going to do hardcore drugs, I mean, if I was going to stay up on some stuff, it'd be a week, right? Like, so again, there were some hardcore things, again, as a teenager that I did, and I just didn't do something. I did everything. You know what I mean? And if I was going to try something, again, I tried it to my best abilities. So, then kind of going to Michigan, I thought that maybe leaving my problems in California was my best solution. But I realized in time what was my problem was myself. It was my choices. It was my choices, my disciplines, and the things that I wasn't doing to correct myself. Right. So when I decided to join the Marine Corps, was not by my choice. It was because I was a shitty ass employee, making bad decisions. And then right around the time that Dylan was made, which wasn't purposefully, he was made. I just weren't. Yeah. No, and I know that. So again, it wasn't like he was just an accident. He was my best accident. So again, one of those things that for me, I wasn't going down the right path. And I had just gotten fired from another job. And then my cousin said, hey man, go talk to this recruiter. I was like, dude, I'm not G.I. Joe, bro. Like, that's not my thing. He's like, well, listen, you got a job at the flower shop or whatever. He got me the job. He's like, if it doesn't go well, you got to go talk to the recruiter. Saturday, I got fired. This is Friday. So we had the conversation. I just started my first day.
How did you get fired from a flower shop?
Because they had called me, because they said that you're not on call, but if we ever call you, we expect you to come in. So they called me, and I pretended that I was sick or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, okay, that was your chance." So I went and talked to the recruiter. He popped this video in. I see all this badass shit coming from a sports background. I was like, "Oh, that looks kind of tight, actually." And then at the time, I had just found out that my girlfriend, his mother, was pregnant with him. So I knew I needed to make some choices. And it was one of the best choices that I've ever made to join the Marine Corps. It wasn't easy. I went to boot camp. I remember it's 13 weeks in boot camp, and I was like probably 3 weeks in, and my cousin and I just happened by dumb luck, we're in the same battalion and same platoon. And so I remember being in the barracks, and the drill instructors were going off on us. I think we're butt ass naked, and they were doing this thing, and we're doing burpees and shit naked. They're playing FF games with us because that's what they do. And I remember I seen my cousin in the shower.
They had the whole, what is it called, platoon or group of people basically doing burpees butt ass naked?
Oh yeah.
That's a mind game.
So
dude.
no, they do it on purpose. So like one time they did what's called the windmill shower. So they get everybody in a single file line, and they turn on all the shower heads, which is like a gym, and you get to walk through the showers, no soap, no nothing, and you get back in. Then you get dressed when they tell you to get dressed. You get undressed when they tell you to get undressed. And I remember looking over at my cousin like, "What the fuck did you just get me into, bro? I hate you. Like, I cannot believe I'm here." Like, and that's 3 weeks in. After that, shit. You graduate, you get the again, like winning a state title or placing in state. It's one of those things that you just feel like you just achieved one of the biggest achievements of the world. It's temporary, just like anything. Right. But, after serving in Iraq, we went to Iraq. I had 2 months left in the Marine Corps. Had already bought my plane tickets home. And then what the United States decided to do was give me a free vacation to Iraq. So they did stop loss. Nobody could retire or get out of the Marine Corps or the services. And they sent us to Iraq. So first we went to Kuwait. We were on standby, and we were the third unit to go into Iraq. And I was part of what's called transportation and like explosive. So I wasn't supposed to be the third unit. We were supposed to be like the supply unit. And so I was a part of like the recon and a lot of the people that were infiltrating up to like Tikrit and all these different areas in Iraq. And it was pretty wild. And some of the experiences that I had seen there,
that had to shape your whole life, I'm sure.
Well, you're humbled. You know, I mean, again, we're very spoiled in society. And I mean, one of the things, aside from the combat, aside from all the other stuff that everybody sees on the movies, because it's not all peaches and cream over there, there's 130 degrees, there's sand fleas, you're limited food, you don't have the water supply had to be imported. There was limited supply for that. There was freaking camel spiders. These things run like 20 freaking miles an hour. I remember shooting one, its leg blew off, and it was still running 20 miles an hour after us, you know, because they follow the silhouette. And those things are like this big. And so anyways, pretty crazy stuff. And then I remember we hadn't eaten for like a week, limited to rations, you know what I mean? And all these people, you know, again, nowadays, you know, oh man, I can't wait to eat at Ruth Chris. I remember just wanting a freaking McDonald's hamburger because I'd been eating the same stuff for so long and it was so hot, no showers for like 90 days. Just sweltering, bro. Like you're in the midst of the hot freaking sun. You're like seeing like what you see in the movies when they're what is it called, like the
heat off the sand.
Yeah. You start seeing stuff like that. You're like, is that a camel, bro? Like you start making stuff up in your mind, you know. So it was quite the experience, but it did shape me.
Well, I'd imagine too, like not to interject, but to kind of go off what you're saying with the whole monk mode and stuff. Like why he probably seems like he's unfazed. He's probably like, this is a cakewalk compared to what I've gone through before.
No, and I would definitely attest to that. I mean, some of the shit that I've seen, lived in, military or otherwise. I mean, you know, life is grand. You know, it's not always peaches and cream, but we have an opportunity that, like, especially the people in this room, you know, we have the opportunity to do what we want to in this life, and it's short. You know what I mean? And I realized when I was in Iraq, you know, that could have been taken away from me at a heartbeat.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, man, how people are so soft. And it's true, our society has gotten so soft. I mean, people can't even stay disciplined to stay on a job or do a lot of different things. So I do think that there's a problem in our society these days that we have to be the difference and be that inspiration for people so that they can see that people are still disciplined. People are still doing it. People are still living life as grand as they can. But I love that, bro. You brought up a good point with that. So
thanks. And I mean, and again, problems don't stop. I mean, just because I was in Iraq, there's different problems that come about. I mean, we talk about it and within our business to each other, you know, on a different level. Right. We won't really go into that. But, you know, good times, bad times, you know what I mean? Good deals, bad deals, right? Little fires, big fires, you know? Right. Like, no matter what, there's still going to be obstacles. But what we wish for sometimes isn't always what we want to paint the picture of, but we need to be prepared for it.
And I think, too, sometimes people think that when an obstacle pops in their way or a negative situation pops in their way, that it pulls them back and they have to like almost start over, or it pushes them back. And the reality is it does not. It actually pushes you forward because it's a learning opportunity. And those learning opportunities can, you know, make a massive impact in your life and business. So
you go.
Yeah, most of the biggest wins I have are because I learned something that I did wrong and I made a fix for it in my business, and it's so much better now, right?
But you leaned into it.
Lean into it, exactly. You feel the pain, you look at it, and you actually listen to what the customer has to say, what the client has to say, what the business partner has to say, and say, hey, this is not looking good, or I want, you know, this to be done better. And actually hearing that information and putting it back into your business so that you can expand and grow, you know? So, yeah, dude, I think losing opportunities, or not losing opportunities, but things that push you back, so to say, or bad things that happen, they're actually a moving stepping stone forward. So
no, absolutely. I mean, I'm grateful for those opportunities. I know that, again, even with Dylan talking about wrestling, you know, all those obstacles, all those times of where we want to quit, or, you know, we just need to have a soundboard or somebody that we can go bounce ideas off of, or expect some type of empathetic response. Whatever it is, again, I think that it just goes back to what we're talking about is, what do we do on a daily basis? Those things matter. The working out, all these cliche things, reading books and hanging out with the right people and eating the right... Dude, when I eat like shit, or I have a few cocktails and I don't work out, the next day, my day is not the same as it was the day before if I did the things that mattered.
100%. And then the momentum too.
Yeah.
Once you build that momentum, you have to keep it, right? Sometimes I feel like we have our foot on the gas and we get deals in escrow or whatever, and we're like, oh man, things are going good. I'm going to go hang out. I'm going to go chill. And the reality is that's when you have to push farther into that, farther into it, keep that momentum. So, and it works with the gym, with the diet, with wrestling, with anything you do in life. So Yeah, let's jump into this, dude. So you closed your first wholesale deal recently, right? Did I see that? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it ended up being it was 2 wholesale deals that was kind of sandwiched into one. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty crazy experience. But I mean, I've been in the business now for 2.5 years, primarily on the investment side. It started off with him kind of just showing up on his doorstep because I had a job opportunity fall through because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And I was like, did not want to do anything to do with my pops because I wanted my own legacy and I wanted to do everything myself. And then all my opportunities kind of fell out and I was like, hey,
let's jump into that a little bit, dude.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. So go ahead. Let's jump into that a little bit. Like you mentioned that you didn't want to like be like learn from your dad, or that was something that was like a blocking stone for you and you had to like work to move past that. Jump into that.
Yeah, he's all cussing. He's like, talk about this.
Yeah.
My shit started getting stuck.
Yeah.
I'm not getting up. My leg fell asleep. Yeah. I had to move it real quick. You know?
He's like, yeah, go into that real quick.
Yeah. I was like,
he's like, what are you going to say?
Let me get my backhand ready.
No, but like, I don't know. I was a real stubborn kid growing. I still am a stubborn person. I am constantly trying to work on being more patient and more open-minded and things like that. And for whatever reason, I mean, he was like, growing up, he was kind of like a little bit of a drill instructor sometimes. Like he was very
well. Your dad's a Marine, bro.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and he would like hype me up like when I do good in matches, but there's also a lot of times where like dad doesn't really have much sympathy. Like I would hurt something or whatever, and I was also very dramatic. So I was going to him for sympathy, and I would never get it ever. So, anyways, I think I just had this perception in my mind of him, and I was like, man, I just want to like fuck this guy, I'm gonna do my own thing, And right. So, anyways, all that being said, I kind of put my pride aside when the opportunities fell away. How convenient for me. And then I was like, hey, Pops, showed up on the doorstep with puppy eyes. And I was like, can I work for you? And so, because everyone else in my college, like wrestling team, like most of them, they don't work, like they're wrestling, that's it. But for me, like during the summer, everyone's like smoking and drinking and like having fun and just training. And to me, that was a waste of time. And I was like, I need to be investing into myself and getting work or like making money, doing something. I just like to hustle. And so showed up at his doorstep and he's like, yeah, you can work for me. But he didn't know what, he's just taking on a new employee. Like, I don't know what you can do. He's like, you can file stuff for me. So I did that. And at the time he was,
when was this? Was that
2020? I think it was, right when COVID kind of happened.
It was right around COVID time.
Yeah.
So, okay. Is that when you came back to Madera? Cause I know you went to SLO for a little bit or somewhere.
So I was during the summer of like, while I was still going to SLO.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, it was my second year of college.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I came back for the summer and then, I just started doing like the filing and stuff. And then at the time he had a couple flips under his belt, had I think a couple rentals at that. Yeah. You had a few rentals at the time too. And he was like, hey, I'm trying to, level this thing up. Maybe you can start talking to some people in the space with me and we can learn together. And I was like, okay, like whatever, I was like, I'm just doing this just so I can work, And then, first met with Jason Pritchard. And then I didn't, honestly, most of his things he said, I didn't understand at all. Like he was talking about some high level stuff. And I was like, I was enamored by him. I'm like, oh, this guy's badass. But what he was saying is he could have been speaking Chinese to me. I had no idea what he was saying.
No, it's funny too. Cause I've noticed that like when I actually sat down with Jason too a while ago and he was telling me stuff and I was like, man, I don't understand any of this.
Yeah.
It's like gibberish. But then once you understand it and you're like, oh, this is easier than I thought.
Totally.
So it's just like being able to like wrap your head around it and take the time to study it. So,
for sure. Well, and something that Jason does really well too is he boils things down like that are complex and still can give wherever you're at in the process, he can still give you nuggets that 100%. You can take away with. And so, he was just telling me about being young in the space and blah, blah, blah. And I remember like after the meeting when I was like, so what'd you think? And I was like fired up. I was like, I'm going to kick some ass, and then, so that for me was like the first taste of real estate. And then I realized everything I'd been pushing away, like I wanted to start welcoming and leaning into, because I was like, real estate's kind of kick ass because although it's competitive, it's collaborative. And it just reminded me, I saw so many parallels between the sport I loved, which was wrestling, it being individual, it being competitive, but also being very collaborative because you're still on a team. I found so many parallels with that sport within real estate. And I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. So that's kind of how I got started.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's true too, to think about. There's kind of that same thing where you are on your own, but you have this community of people that are helping you level up and grow. So
I want to pick on you.
Pick on me?
Yeah.
Okay, pick on me. Let's go.
So I don't know that everybody knows, but I've known you for a long time, like you said in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I also remember you being super ambitious. Mm-hmm. You come into my office and you told me that you wanted to be at a certain level and you also did cold calls with Angel and Anna. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Came to the office at 6 p.m. He was driving a gray Lexus. Remember it to this day. And he was telling me, he's like, hey, I work for this guy. I do this company. You know, I like it. I'm making my cold calls. I'm doing this. I'm not that person that likes to go out and do this stuff, but I'm doing it. I've learned the system. I got the CRM and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I want to be here. I was like, you're going to be there. I said, I don't see any reason why you won't be there. And so even like how I hyped you up, I did hype you up, but it's because I believed in you and I knew your potential because I seen it in you. I seen it in your eyes. I seen it in your aura. And then not 3 years later, were you a branch manager and having your own outfit therefore after, because you put the grind in, you put the hustle in, you did the things that mattered. I remember seeing you drive a truck. It was like a Tacoma or something.
Yep, Tacoma blue.
Yep.
Blue
to buying your very nice truck that you have now, to the house that you have now, again, to building the team out that you have now. And it all started because you had a vision and you followed through as well. So, I mean, when we're unpacking things, what did you have to go through to get to where you're at?
Yeah, well, I think one thing people get stuck on is the how, right? Like they feel like they have to know all the details of how to get there. How am I going to close this much? And the reality is I never knew the how. Like even day to day, I was like, okay, what am I doing? I'm going to be making calls. Do I hire somebody? Like, what do I do? So I think just like doing the action that you can do every single day and then putting it out there, it just kind of comes in and the right opportunity and the right people come into your life to make your vision happen. So like I learned from certain people at Nexa. Nexa was a great learning experience for me. And just kind of being in that new environment where I was on my own. So I had to like teach myself a lot about the loan process, how to build a team out, things like that, to where I am now with Vero and, being brought in as a partner. One of the biggest reasons I went to Vero is because of Jeremy. Like I wanted his mentorship for him to be able to teach me. And so I have big goals and aspirations of where I want to go from here. And I honestly feel like God brings people into your life. So I feel like God brought Jeremy into my life to like teach me these things. So I'm kind of rambling on about this. I'm not sure if I quite answered your question, but I just don't think you need to know the how. And I think people get stuck on that.
Well, the things that I heard was that you kept your feet moving, you kept your vision, and no matter what, you kept on doing the things that mattered to get you where you were. You didn't get stuck in paralysis analysis. You didn't get worried about people on social media going to be the haters. Right. You put yourself out of your comfort zone and you did the things that mattered. And as long as you were doing the things right, the universe, God, whatever you want to attribute it to, brought the things in alignment to what you wanted.
Right. And I also feel like social media made a massive impact in my business. Like I was doing social media before any LOs. I just want to point that out. Like seriously, my shit was
OG really of social media.
It was super corny, bro. Like when I had little banners that was like FHA loan, get approved. Do you remember those?
Mine are still corny, bro. That's still better than what I'm posting.
And I remember people would make fun of me for it. Oh, this guy's a clown. Look at him on social media. His shit. They talk behind my back about it. I'd hear about it.
Yeah, of course.
And then slowly but surely, that top of mind awareness that social media gives you, all of a sudden it's like, who is this Corbin guy? Like he's everywhere now, because social media creates that perception that you're everywhere, even if you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, you could literally be taking a week off work, but you're posting on social media every single day, and people are like, oh, this guy's always working. Like it's just the way that it does, So I feel like social media helped me out a ton. And that was something that made a massive impact growing my business. And since I've kind of evolved and leveled up, and now I'm a part of a mastermind learning how to like do social media better and better. But I think that was one of the bigger turning points for me.
When you were first starting to post on social media, like right before you made the leap of just like, all right, I'm going to start putting myself out there, did you kind of have some, I guess, reservations at first where you're like, fuck?
100%, dude. Still to this day, I don't like watching my own videos. Now it's like I can still kind of watch them, but my first videos, dude, I remember my first video, I was in a cardigan with a sweater, and I just looked like, it looked bad, man. I don't know what I was thinking. But I had massive reservations. I didn't want to post, dude. Yeah. It was embarrassing. I felt cheesy sometimes. So
totally.
But you still have to do it.
Well, let me tell you, because this guy's actually dressed up as me for Halloween, because I used to be the guy, and you're not the only one, And I'm not the one that created it, but I did see a guy do it where he did like the live videos and blah, blah, blah. And here I am. And some of us still do. I still do it. But Dylan literally dressed up for like me.
Well, he's the easiest guy to dress up
with the hat, tucked in polo shirt, jeans.
That's hilarious.
And in the middle of the CrossFit, he was like, "Oh, who am I?" Blah blah blah, blah, blah. And everybody was like ranting and raving, like they thought it was the funniest shit. It was pretty good. However, that in itself has grew my business 100%. That old school tactic, just putting the content out there, not being afraid, not worrying about what everybody else says, but just doing it because you're trying to provide value and something for the people that are watching.
Yeah.
There's a really good book by Gary Vee called, I think it's like Jab, Jab, Uppercut or
Right
Hook or something like that.
Yeah.
He talks about that, like just putting out value, and then asking for something in return later down the road, like a call to action, like putting them on a Zoom call and talking about first-time homebuyer programs. But you can't have a call to action all the time. You have to be providing value. It's like if you have a bank account, you have to deposit money in the bank account because if you keep pulling it out, you're going to be bankrupt.
Yeah.
And that's how social media is. And I think that's where some people get it wrong is they just try to like pull, hey, give me deals. I want a deal. Like, is anybody buying a home? And the reality is people just don't really react to that as well as like just trying to help and coming from that point, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like too, like especially like going with the whole social media thing. I think in the beginning, like depending on where you're at in the stage, at least I know for me, like I had a really hard time. I've been in this space now for like 2.5 years, and it took me like a really like long time to be comfortable posting about it. I think part of it too, like I just didn't really like. I wanted to be successful before I started posting, because then I wanted something to talk about, you know. But what I realized, because someone had asked me, there was a guy I'd worked out with who's big on social media and like does like flipping and stuff. He's my age, and he was telling me during this workout, he's like, well, like, what are you afraid of for posting? And I was like, he's like, you know, are you afraid of like people commenting? Because that's going to happen. And I was like, no, I'm not afraid of people commenting. I'm not afraid of strangers like telling me to F off. Like that's what I do on a daily basis with cold calls, you know. I'm like, strangers don't bother me. He's like, then what is it? And I was like, at that point, I'd never really given it any thought, and then I really thought about it, and I was like, oh, it's my friends. I'm afraid that my friends are roasting me about these corny videos I'm about to post. And then he's like, and then right when he said that, that's what, for me, that's what made it. Literally the next day I was like, okay, what do I need to say? He's like, hook, value, call to action. And literally that same day I recorded a video and sent it, because it was like, why? Like it was this mental block. But then you jump in the water, just like a polar plunge or whatever, and you realize the water's not that bad.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the good friends are going to support you.
Totally.
You know what I mean? They're going to support what you're doing. So that's important to me. So
100%.
Yeah. So, dude, so let's go into some other stuff, man. If we have a few more minutes here,
yeah, for
if
sure.
you want to tell some stuff about more the Marine Corps, maybe over there, trying to get some good stories.
Okay, you want some good stories?
Yeah, give me a good story, man.
All
Give
right.
the audience a good story.
You want funny stories, or you want
maybe a little bit of both.
Okay. So there was this one time we were out there in the middle of nowhere, and this is kind of funny but not, okay? So I was driving 18 hours, and we were in a convoy, and I hauled aerial explosives. So probably not the best thing to haul in a war, but you know, whatever. And then not only that, like in a 100 vehicle convoy, you're spread out about 100 feet. So that's like 2.5 miles long or something. Mm-hmm. So you cannot be missed. Oops. And so with that said, they're like, hey, we're going to pull over on the side of the road. We're going to make some fighting holes, which is you basically build like a 3x6 little hole in the ground. You dig it. But we really didn't have time. It was dark. So we were just going to camp out. And again, camping's not like tent and like you got a hammock and shit, you know?
It's not glamping.
Yeah, there's no glamping. And so anyways, super tired, bro. Like I think I had some Rip Fuel. I don't know if you ever remember Rip Fuel. Mm-mm. It had that Excedrin stuff in it, or ephedra. Okay. It was like almost like a caffeine, but like way better. But they banned it because like it can like.
Did they give those to Marines?
No,
Did you guys have stuff like that?
No, not
like
my
adrenaline,
time.
like you see in the video games.
No, not my time. Yeah, that's meth, bro. That's meth.
I'm curious though. Do like Navy SEALs and stuff when they go into combat? They probably have adrenaline with them and stuff like that they can inject. Maybe,
they
right?
might, bro. I don't know. I know Navy SEALs, bro. Like I was with them over there too, but. They're bad. They're another animal.
Well, I feel like Navy SEALs feel the same way about Marines too, because you hear Jocko Willing talk about it in some of his podcasts. He's like, no, some of the Marines were the most badass dudes that we were with. You know,
I think that because we're masses, the Navy SEALs is so small, right? So they're elite, but they're small. But Marines, like, we're all taught to be crazy, right? So it's like it's a little different thing. But
what was it like seeing like a Navy SEAL pull up? And you're just
bro,
like,
it was
oh,
like a
shit,
celebrity. You're like,
getting
oh
rough.
wow, dude, he'll fuck you up. You know what I mean? Like I remember we were at this bar one time. Not to segue from what I was gonna say, but we were at a bar in Yuma, Arizona. Mind you, that's like the armpit of Arizona. First of all, it's like 130 degrees. I'm thankful that I was stationed there, but you don't want to be stationed there, nor do you want to go there on vacation.
Right.
But we were in a little bar, and this big bearded guy comes up, and you know, Navy SEALs just aren't as groomed as we are because, you know, they're supposed to be like part of the element, right? So they can be a little bit more rustic or rugged, I guess. And this guy, he's next to me, he's bearded, tatted up, skinny, doesn't look like nothing. But I seen a tattoo, and I was like, I knew what it had meant, that he was a Navy SEAL. And so anyways, this guy at the bar was kind of smarting off to him a little bit. There's three of the Navy SEAL guys there. And I told my buddy, I was like, if that guy keeps talking shit, dude, he's going to wreck this guy right now. Yes. Lo and behold, the guy got a little cocky, swung on this guy. And I swear in like 2 seconds, this guy bashed his head, put him in a headlock, put him and like had his arm behind his back like an MP, like military police would do, and then kicked him in the ass and spit on him. And that was like a 4-second move. Right, like boom, boom. Like, I was just like, even his buddies, like you could tell they wanted to jump in at first, but then they were like so like shocked as well. They're just like, they're like, hey, bro, get Uber, but it'd be taxi back then because there wasn't Uber.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Navy SEALs are another animal for sure.
Dude, I love that you brought that up too. Like one thing I've learned in jiu-jitsu is that I don't know shit. And somebody that knows how to fight is going to whoop my ass.
Bro, it's like, have you ever had that dream? Hold on, let me help you with that. Have you ever had that dream where you're in a fight?
Right.
And you can't win? Right? Everything that you're doing, it's like you're hitting clouds, bro. Like it's not even phasing them. That's what I feel like when you're doing jits. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And as you get humbled.
You do get humbled. And as you learn and level up, you become better and better. But that's one thing I learned. Like people think they can fight. People have this idea in their head, you know, that even like with wrestling, they're like, oh, I could probably wrestle you. You're like, okay, bro. You know, like people have this idea and then they get into a mixed martial arts or they get their ass kicked by a Navy SEAL and it's like, holy shit, I'm helpless against somebody that actually knows what they're doing. I'm helpless, you know? So
no, it's a different level.
Yeah.
And so going back to the Iraq thing, so the commanding officer said, okay, we're gonna pull off, we're gonna you know, get some shut eye, whatever the case is, couple hours. Mind you, we're driving 18 hours, but we had been up for 40 something hours because we had just entered into Kuwait. So anyways, we go. And at that time, we were kind of concerned about basically like weapons of warfare or maybe like a chemical attack of some sort from the Iraqi people, Saddam. And so anyways, the alarm went off. We had these sensors and the alarm had went off. That means you need to put on your MOP level gear, which is your gas mask, full body suit. Right, mind you, this is the desert, bro. It's super hot, super cold during the day, depending on the time, right? And so, anyways, we put on our gear. You down and clear your mask. And I remember we're just sitting there with your gas mask. And you're like Darth Vader for a couple of hours, right?
Wow.
So I started drifting off, bro. I'm hella tired. I fall asleep, dude. Like in my gear, I wake up, my mask is completely to the side of my face. So if there was a gas attack,
you're dead.
I would have been fucked. Like, you know, but I wake up, drool and shit's coming out of my mouth. And like I try to correct my mask, like I've just saved myself. I look around, all my buddies are like back to back. Everybody's kind of knocked out. My gunnery sergeant's just walking around. Pussies! You could have died, fuckers. just wild. But that was kind of something that stood out. That if I had to bring up a story, that was a good one.
That's cool, man. That's a good story.
I got one more, not to steal the show. So camel spiders are kind of crazy, right? And you'll have to look it up, and you'll look it up, and you'll be like, okay, cool. So anyways, they follow silhouettes because something about the shade. So anyways, this one was running, I guess, and I didn't see it specifically, but one of my buddies was telling me, and again, this is third-party story, but I'm pretty sure it's true. He said that his one buddy went in and closed we finally had gotten porta potties because before when you shit out in the
Are you wiping with leaves or your
No,
hand?
there's no leaves, bro. There's no leaves. There's a desert, bro.
Oh, okay.
Like you would have maybe a couple tissues that you got from an MRE because MREs have that, coffee, and whatever the case is. But bro, you would have to go out there and hover. Maybe if you had like your E-tool, which is like a shovel, it like unfolds and you'd like put the handle like that and you could sit one cheek on there. You just sit out and you just be watching your buddy out there in the middle of shit and then you'd bury your shit. Then we upgraded to... we had these guys that they're basically like contractors. They were I forget what they're called. It was part of the Navy, but they built us kind of like porta-johns out of wood. Well, those porta-johns aren't porta-johns, bro. They're made out of plywood. So we would chop off basically like the barrels, like burning barrels, grease barrels. Have you ever seen them? So you chop off the top and that's what you would shit in. So you would have shit duty. So shit duty is you go throw fucking gasoline on it, pull that thing and set it on fire and have to stir it.
Stop.
I swear
That is
to God.
not real. Come
That's
on.
fucking real.
Why do you have to stir it?
Because you have to get it to freaking burn.
Oh God,
Dude,
So we
people
upgraded.
don't realize what our military goes
No,
through.
bro,
man.
it was savage. It's savage.
God.
So we finally got porta-johns wherever you'd finally get stationed. And remind you, someone doesn't come to clean that shit out very often, you know? So anyways, I'll spare you. You can use your imagination. But a camel spider, I guess, was following this one Marine, and he didn't know it because it was following his silhouette. So he closed the door when we upgraded, and this thing was jumping on the door. And my buddy said he shot it. When he shot it, he did take a leg off or whatever. But he said the buddy was so scared he flipped the porta-john. and he was trying to open the door, but it flipped the wrong way.
So the shit fell everywhere? Or
So, but he couldn't get out. They had to roll it, so because the door was trapped shut. So he's like, "Let me out here." He was banging it and making it worse because he was just splatting shit everywhere.
Oh my God.
So, anyways,
Yeah, bro. How happy were you to see a toilet?
oh
And,
man,
like-
we were pretty excited. bro.
Holy crap.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I remember getting super excited for.
People don't realize what our military goes through. I'll say it again. They just don't, man. So
Yeah, it was
that's
crazy
wild. Thank you
times.
for serving, bro.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
But want to end it off on one last thing. What would you give somebody getting into wholesaling, getting into real estate, maybe going a little bit about what you're doing this year in a more challenging market that we're in right now? Give somebody some advice.
So, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I think Dylan will test, maybe even yourself, just find somebody that you can bring value to. And again, because a lot of people want to reach out and say, oh, you know, will you be my mentor? You know, and a lot of people that I know that I associate with, there's too many people like that. And there's only the few that really want to do the work.
Right.
So when you see someone that truly wants to do the work, it'll come across because they're going to bring something to you that's going to make the difference, that you can add value to help them. Because I'll help anybody that's willing to help themselves. But usually people want help so you can do the work for them.
Yeah.
And so for me, getting started, link yourself up with someone that's doing what you want to do and figure out a way that you can connect, because we were talking about it earlier. You're usually only one person away from changing your life. So if it's me to you to the next person, or me to you, whatever the case is, that person could change your life if it's the right person that you're trying to connect with.
That's crazy to think about. It's 100% true. 100% true.
Yeah. Well, I think too, it's like you have to understand the opportunity that's in front of you. I think that a lot of people kind of take for granted the opportunities that they have. And if you do get the opportunity to be around people that are doing it at a high level, like he said, I think a lot of people want to just take, and it's givers are very good at understanding, especially high level givers are good at understanding who's a taker and who's a giver. Mm-hmm. You know, and people want to give to people that are already givers. And so if, for example, I was just on Scott and Cade's podcast not too long ago, and I didn't even realize, but I had forgotten I had called for Scott, but he was giving me advice, and I was like, I'll call for you. And he's like, oh, call some leads. And so I did it. And then he was willing to role play with me. And then he was willing to answer questions for me. But I just did what he said, because he's always trained me to be that way. But I'm like, you ask for advice, you take action on the advice that you're given. And so I think that if you do surround yourself with like-minded people, it's not enough to just be in that environment. You have to be willing to give more than you want, because the exchange you're doing is in exchange for them to give you value, which is taking now time away from them, you're giving them more than what they like you expect to receive, So I think, like he said, people will respond well to that and they want to help you.
I have one
That's
thing
gonna be
to
a
kind
good
of
clip
stem
right there.
I have one stem to go off of that. So one of the agents at my office, when he wanted to work for me, I didn't want to hire anybody because I don't want to be the teacher, the leader, blah, 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 even though I am. And so he was like, dude, I know nothing but great things of your office. I want to work with you. I was like, yeah, He's like, I'm going to get my real estate license. This is my goal. He's like, I'll bring you fucking coffee. I'll get the office coffee. I'll go take your car to get washed. I don't care whatever I got to do to just share space with you. And I was like, this guy won't even let me tell him no. So I knew in my heart that guy was going to be a rock star. And now he's a cold calling freaking animal at my office, and he's picking up momentum.
The only one that needs to be said, the only one cold calling, and like it takes a certain level. I mean, he's almost 50, and he was willing to come out.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, he's willing to go.
We have a great team, and everybody has their own niches. But this guy, again, the way his approach was, the way that he came at me, I mean, and he shows up every day.
I want to talk about that a little bit, kind of diving into that with this market right now, right? In 21, it was so easy to do real estate. I mean, I got out of bed in the morning and you'd get 4 deals that are just like gimmies. Like you don't have to do anything for them. They are moving forward on a refinance, guaranteed. They're going to go with you because they were referred by a friend. Like that's the type of deals that you would get in 21. Now you can't do that. So you're mentioning cold calling, putting yourself out there. Like you have to do the income producing activities right now on a way bigger level to actually succeed in this market. Because we're still doing okay. We're still crushing it. We're still closing a lot of deals. But my action has gone up significantly from 2022 and 2021. And honestly, I'm more disciplined now in my business with like lead follow-up and that stuff than I was in 2021.
100%.
So I love that you're mentioning he wants to cold call and all this kind of stuff, because right now the market's a little bit tougher. Imagine that in a busy market. He's going to be a freaking animal. He's going to be closing 100%. Deals left and right. So,
which goes back to what you were saying earlier about obstacles. And I think you had said like obstacles can shape us and whatnot. It really depends on how you view the obstacle though, because like this, for example, the market it's different. It's tougher, right? So this is an incredible opportunity to become savages and great at prospecting and great at working on our business because of the obstacle I had. But if everything was going right, you don't stop when things are going right. It's not too often you're sitting there and you're like, oh, what could I be doing better? You're like, things are going great. But when you're on your ass, you're forced to ask. You're like, okay, how can I get out of this? So I think you really have to view the obstacle as an opportunity to grow. And if you can change that mindset, you look at everything else differently.
100%, dude, because it is an opportunity. And right now there's people that are like, oh, I'm just going to go sell solar. I'm going to go do something else. And it's like they're constantly jumping around industry to industry because they're trying to make the most money at that time. And the people that win big are the people that stay in the industry that they're in, focus all their energy in it, and grow. Like even in the tough times. So
to stem off that, I know we're trying to close up, but someone told me if you want to be great at what you do, you need to become great at what you do.
And there's like some special amount of hours I've heard, like it's like, I can't remember. It's like 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
You have to be an expert in your industry, right? If you want to be a master, you have to be an expert in your industry, right? If you want people to gravitate to what you do, you can walk in silence, but again, your movement will be loud.
And if you're not good at cold calling, you're not good at door knocking, do more of it. You'll get better over time. Get the reps in.
100%.
I love that. What was that quote you said?
I just made that shit up.
It was good, dude. It was good. That needs to be your slogan for Miracle Realty.
Jake's got to tell us what I said.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. So going to have you guys on again, hopefully in the future, and we'll chat it up more. Does anybody have anything they want to finish out on or let the guests know?
I'm just grateful to be a part of, and again, just knowing that our friendship has transpired to what it is today, and to see you grow, to see us grow. I'm excited to be on the next one because I know that, again, 2023, 2024, and 2030, we're going to be making differences in people's lives, and that's what I'm grateful to be a part of.
Love it, man. Where can they find you?
At Miracle Realty, 559-674-0091, or our website, miraclerealty.com.
Cool.
His handle is also Beau_Miracle_Mr. Broker, right?
Yeah.
It's like some long ass name. If you want to find me on social, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, at Dillionaire321. I try to do everything I can to document the journey, share the processes and stuff I learned along the way. So if you guys want to see someone hustling and you're not sure where to start, you can check my stuff out, and that's what I share.
Cool. Thanks guys for coming on.